Hello, my name is Jesse Spur and I work as a nurse educator for medical emergency response at a veterinary hospital in Queensland, Australia, the state better known for more recently hosting Smack Gold. I have some experience in a broad range of health simulations, from simple pause and discuss to multi-departmental patient-in-motion scenarios. In the next few minutes, I hope to extol the virtues of a very important role in immersive team-based simulation, the strategic plant. As a nurse educator, my title proves somewhat paradoxical, as the vast majority of my job entails medical education, from intern through to consultant medical officer, or as I more fondly refer, teaching upstream. I'm not a simulation evangelist, nor do I purport to be an expert, but I do see it as a brilliant teaching technique for every good clinician educator to brandish in their armoury. Twitter, Google Plus and the foam community have provided me with the most significant knowledge leaps I have experienced at any time in my professional life. And also, thanks to conferences and courses such as this, true friendships with colleagues from all over the world. In my spare time, I'm an author and creator of injectableorange.com. I'm reticent to try and define the site, as I'm still not sure I understand it myself. So on with the talk. Plants in simulation. No, we're not talking about Led Zeppelin. Sorry to reel you in under false pretenses. We're talking about a role defined in the academic literature of health simulation as confederate. I'm a bit of a stickler for terminology in simulation, mainly because it allows all faculty to be on the same page and can also avoid some negative connotations that participants may hold coming to your sim related to prior bad experiences in dummy-based mocks or role plays. Anyone breaking out in a cold sweat yet? The term confederate quite simply means to be a simulated participant. There is an excellent article titled Establishing a Convention for Acting in Healthcare Simulation, Merging Art and Science, published in 2013 Journal of Society for Simulation in Healthcare by Jill Sanko and colleagues. This echoes my sentiment of terminology being somewhat vital in the establishment of the new higher order science of teaching through simulation. Don't worry, this is where the academics end and we start to get into tacit experience stuff, the nitty-gritty of how, as a facilitator or simulation coordinator, you need help from your strategic plant in the room. Your confederate is really, truly your good old boy or gal on the inside. We haven't abandoned the Led Zeppelin reference yet. I don't let a bad joke go down without a fight. But the analogy carries. The front man needs his offsider. On stage, the lead guitarist can improvise an amazing solo and bend the minds of the crowd, or cover forgotten lyrics with a blistering feedback-laden mastery. This is what the good confederate does in simulation. At its roots, the confederate role is to augment and rescue the scenario depending on where it lies on the continuum of Hindenburg to Sublime. Over the next few minutes, we'll pick apart just how the confederate does this, who to choose, and some tips and tricks for success. In the resus room, the catastrophe in cath lab, or the crashing ICU patient, there is never the all-powerful, all-knowing voice responding to, what's the patient's blood glucose? What's the patient's potassium? So why in sim? Let's use the confederate to kill the voice in the ceiling. This call and response between the facilitator and participants is a constant reminder of the falsehood of the scenario, jarring the participant from their attempts to buy into the fiction contract that is essential for good quality and realistic immersive simulation. This is so easily overcome with a well-informed confederate acting out the finger prick glucose test and bringing in the printed arterial blood gas in real time and feeding back to the team leader who had requested the test, halting the sim fast forward and reminding that task overload is a real possibility. This is where things start to get interesting. Another concept portrayed in high-fidelity simulation literature is the signal versus noise dichotomy. The well-primed confederate, plus or minus audio earpiece, enables us to enhance the signal or increase noise, depending on the performance of the current group of individuals in real time. So how does this work in context? Righto, your team are comprised of many levels of trainees, nurses, respiratory therapists, etc., and are struggling, lacking cohesion, anxious, unable to find the pulses on the $100,000 mannequin, and generally suffering from a pretty bad case of simulitis. Your confederate steps up. Oh, actually his feet and hands are freezing and I'm pretty sure his wife said he's had pretty nasty flu-like symptoms over the past 3 days. His blood pressure's in his boots. Subtle? Not much, but it can take this cue to set the wheels in motion. The subtle nudge from a confederate can also help jar those participants that are just gaming the sim into a new world of buy-in. A particular case I recall is a simulation for emergency department trainees. The team leader was joking a lot and generally one step removed from the immersion that the rest of the team was attempting. We sent in a staff member, dressed in street clothes, in the role of the patient's brother, with the mandate to remind the team leader that there was a real patient at the centre of this. The resus bay exploded. An irate brother slammed a metal trolley and said, "Why are you joking? This is..." So what of the other end of the spectrum? The high-performing team, lighting up the resus and needing that extra challenge, stressor or diagnostic diversion. The confederate allows us to escalate the intensity and when working in synchrony with the simulation coordinator and facilitator, either through familiarity or live audio link, can dramatically shift the intensity up a gear in the sim. A case I recall of increasing noise occurred when the confederate was a nurse in resus, once again as part of the ED training program sim, and this time with an incredibly high-performing and very immersed team. The one weakness was a serial overloading of the nurse, played by yours truly. I was feeling this markedly and observed for an opportunity to bring this to play. I capitalised on a slightly flippant order for morphine and midazolam intended for post-intubation analgesia and sedation, instead bolusing the entire dose at the time of induction. Whoops. When the team leader eventually followed up the request a few minutes later, I sheepishly said, wasn't I meant to give that as a push? The patient's blood pressure plummeted and we had a great human factors discussion point for the debrief. Don't worry, the registrar still talks to me. So who's the best person to be a confederate? Ideally someone the participants aren't overly familiar with, or, conversely, work with, but in their actual clinical roles. In most cases, due to practicalities and resources, my experiences have been of using faculty members to play an informed participant. The key is the actor needs to be able, at a minimum, to act naturally. So what about roles of confederates? Family and friends are an absolute staple in terms of noise production, stresses and distractions, and I'd heavily advocate for the inclusion of this role when you're dealing with well-trained learners who are familiar with sim. Write these roles into your scenario so there is a point for their presence and an emotional aim. Nurses. Without bias, I have to say, for medical simulation, the nurse confederate is the most pivotal piece in being able to maintain the fiction contract with your learners. The blood gas? Yep, I'll just go run that. I'll be back in 3 minutes. The lab results? Yep, I'll chase those up. The unexpected blood transfusion you haven't prepared for. Oh, the lab rang and they have no A positive. Or even better, oh no, the patient's a Jehovah's Witness, it's in his chart from last admission. Blood glucose, done. Temperature, done. That drug you don't stock in your sim lab? Fabricated, done. Tension pneumothorax, resident oscillates and hears equal air entry bilaterally. Oh, are you sure? The chest wall movement looks uneven. Done. So many ways to keep the train on the rails. Social workers. I thought I'd spend a second on social workers due to the rather profound simulation experiences I've been part of, in which the primary focus has been for the team to gain experience in dealing with an unsuccessful paediatric resus. When dealing with death, the situation is very challenging, and we don't want our trainees to flounder in the sim. The social worker as confederate can provide vital support and is also a strong and experienced and steady voice in the debrief. This works really awesomely well, and I'd implore you all to give it a try. Surgeons or any other specialty that may have a different view as to the management of your patient can provide an awesome vehicle to generate conflict, diagnostic bias, or time pressure, and really apply some real-world stress in the scenario. A key factor in utilising a confederate to play another specialty is embedding realistic knowledge in that role and not creating a caricature, as this can have a detrimental effect at the time and potentially afterwards. We've touched on quite a few points, so I'll try and bring in a top 5. A confederate should be like MacGyver, adaptive, inventive, and have broad situational awareness. 2. Write the confederate role into the scenario, with the objective of eliciting the desired learning outcomes. 3. The confederate should, however, not sport a MacGyver-like hairdo. Too often this is the wig of choice in disguising Confederates. Avoid caricatures and make your Confederate real. Which brings us to avoid stereotypes and cliches, especially when it comes to portrayal of other professions or disciplines. Remember, the unwritten curriculum is powerful, and simulation can set bad habits and misperceptions. And finally, 5. Embrace the challenge, become an actor, and reflect on real cases, and kill the voice in the ceiling. So in wrapping up, if you already use a Confederate, well done. You're awesome. Raise your hand so the others can come up and chat about your experiences at morning tea or lunch. If you don't use a Confederate, I hope this has convinced you to give it a try and see the benefits. If you don't teach with simulation, why the heck not? And I hope this course will help you with the skills and inspiration to do so. And just as I said, I don't let a bad joke die easily. So climb that stairway to heaven, be an awesome teacher, and thanks for listening.